point, kind of reintroduce yourself to some things you may already know. I am in no way the only expert in this space. I know you all are doing phenomenal work. One of the gentlemen that I look up to and consider a mentor, Brother Greg King, is on here. So I know you all are getting much of what you need just from him alone. And then, of course, if you don't like anything that I did today, my mentor, Dr. Stacy Alt, who brought me out to Sacramento, you can blame her because it's her fault that I'm even here. So if nothing resonates today, make sure you send her an email and ask her what was she thinking by hiring me to come to Sac City. Totally kidding. No, maybe a little bit. But I love Stacy. She is phenomenal, and I'm sure you got tons of information from her as well. But I'm going to go ahead and get ready to get started. Just giving you a little bit of introduction about myself. I am, as I stated, originally from the Chicago area. Kankakee, Illinois. If you know anything about Chicago, then you know where Kankakee is at. If not, just go with Chicago. It makes it so much easier. I spent 22 years in public education before I stepped into the space of Mentor, California. Was a high school English teacher, spent 9 years in administration as a dean, assistant principal, and principal, and then came out here as coordinator and eventual director of Sac City Unified School District's youth development programs, and then started Mentor California a year and a half ago. Mentor, I will speak a little bit about it, but we are the affiliate of the national partnership out of Boston, Massachusetts. And of course, you know, it is National Mentoring Month, which we're extremely excited about. It's an extremely busy time for us, but it's an absolute amazing time for us to be able to lift up the importance of mentoring. The last thing I want to state before I jump into the actual presentation is if you have not had a chance to check out Superintendent Tony Thurman's announcement about his statewide mentoring program, I would encourage you to do so. I can definitely share that announcement with the Sierra Health and Youth Forward team if you all have not seen it, but he is looking to start a statewide mentoring initiative, and they are looking for folks to get involved. So I would encourage you, if you have not reached out, to definitely try to get involved with that, because it's going to be important for us to have folks like you all in the space being able to talk about what's going to be necessary for our young people. As we get ready to move forward, we're going to talk a little bit about healing the mentor and also what it means to heal the mentee. And we're going to go over some mentoring strategies, talk about some practices. I have a few videos that I want to share with you all that have just come from our newly launched Becoming a Better Mentor guidebook. There's some really great videos. And what I want to stress to you all is you can go to our website. You can go to the national website or our website, mentorcaliforniayouth.org, and you can download all of these videos. You can download all of the social media graphics, as well as the guidebook, which I know has been shared with you all already. But please go and get these so you can check them out. So before we get started, I definitely want to have you all share just in the chat a little bit so that I can get to know you a little bit better, and then maybe some things that you all can share with each other just around what are some practices and processes that you identify with that allow space for healing and joy. Just drop them into the chat as we're talking through this. What are some practices or processes you identify with that allow space for healing and for joy? This will help us as we go through the next hour together. I'm going to try to be really responsible around time, because I know you have contract conversations coming up, and I know how important those contract conversations are. So I think it's going to be important for me to get done and give you all time to do that. But I love seeing stuff already around self-care, thinking about meditation, self-love. Meditation is one that I do on a daily basis, really trying to make sure that I am intentional with my meditation. Taking walks is something else that is pretty important for me as well. Quiet time, I love that. It's hard for us to be able to find time to just be quiet and really resonate with ourselves. I love journaling, writing. That's why Facebook, I tell everybody all the time, that's why Facebook is so popular, because writing is healing, right? If we can jump on and we can share where we are, our feelings, it's important. Calming music, love that. I play guitar in 3 bands. Yes, you do, Jim. I see those YouTube videos. They are phenomenal. I was like, listen, I didn't know, Jim hiding some stuff. We got to get him to the Grammys, make some things happen. So that's beautiful. Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. Prayer and fellowship with loved ones. I think that's beautiful as well. Always being able to share time with each other is great. All right. Thank you all for sharing that. I appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about the contents of this training, things that I'm hoping you'll be able to pull from this. And if you don't get it deeply in this training, it definitely is in the guidebook that we've given. But we're going to talk about, the importance of critical mentoring and youth work in this moment, right? Because this moment is a little bit different than maybe what we've gone through in years past, especially because of the pandemic. Identifying best practices for centering youth voice in any space, which is really, really important. Identifying the ways that rest and healing justice are helpful in response situations. Brother King, I think, is an expert in this space. That's one of the first things that I learned from him is how do we respond in situations that happen in community? How do we wrap around each other? How do we share the opportunity to be able to support each other when our community needs support? We'll learn a little bit about racial trauma and its effects. We'll learn just how to hold space, which is what we're doing right now. And then, of course, breakout rooms for discussion and think tank sessions on next steps and how things are moving forward. Also, as we go through this time, just some community agreements. Very simple for us as we do any of our work as Mentor California. We always tell people to engage with intention, listen with intention, speak and learn with intention, intentionally and proactively keep equity at the center of what you're doing and how you are thinking through these processes. If something comes up and we decide, then we abide as a group. These are the things that we've decided to do. So we're going to abide by that and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to that. And lastly, protecting our community, which I know Jim has done a phenomenal job in Sarah and the Youth Forward team, as well as Sierra Health Foundation, with always being intentional about the community space and bringing folks in a place where they feel protected, which is absolutely amazing. Just a couple things about Mentor California. Our vision in this work, we are a statewide organization, and we want to make sure every young person in California has the supportive relationships they need to grow and develop into thriving, productive, and engaged adults. Our mission is really simple. We are not a direct service program, which is something that we want to continue to lift up. We want to support direct service programs that are doing this work. So in the background, we are helping to fuel the quality and quantity of mentoring relationships for California's young people and to close that mentoring gap, which is 1 to 3. We want to try to get that to a place where we know every young person has at least one caring adult in their life. Lastly, I'll share our values as Mentor California and our strategic plan. You will see this, you can find that on our website, but it's really around these 4 core principles: inclusivity, love, self-care, and transparency. Not gonna read through all of the definitions of those. You definitely have this as it was sent to you, but I wanna make sure that before, see, this is the fun part of sharing your screen and making sure that everything works the way that you want it to. Sarah, since I see you next to me first, I'm gonna ask you to be my accountability partner so that I know that when I share this screen, that the sound is on and you all can hear the video. This is my favorite part of Zoom because either I get it right or I don't. But I'm gonna say we're gonna make it happen. So just give me a thumbs up, Sarah, if it's good to go.
Becoming a better mentor. Strategies to be there for young people. Providing emotional support and empathy. Empathy is foundational in making meaningful connections with other people. There are many different definitions of empathy, but all are rooted in the common understanding of what it means to walk a mile in another's shoes. Empathy is being open to imagining another person's experiences from their point of view and striving to find points of connection, not by presuming to feel the same, but by trying to feel with and be responsive to the other person. The benefits of being empathetic in your mentoring relationship are amazing. Communicating that you care about your mentee and want to understand things from their point of view can result in them feeling emotionally supported by you. This can contribute to your mentee feeling heard, understood, responded to, and even respected by you. The good news is that the capacity for empathy is a skill that can grow through learning and practice. Empathy can be broken down to two main actions: perspective taking and adaptability. Practicing and trying things out is especially important in developing these skills. With perspective taking, mentors actively work to understand and relate to their mentees' experiences and to use this knowledge to be more responsive to their needs in the relationship. Finding commonalities in your experiences can be a good place to start. Although perspective taking is an important first step, it alone is not enough. Practicing adaptability allows you to not only take on the perspective of your mentee, but also communicate how you are being responsive to their experiences. At times, this may mean you need to adjust your approach, your attitude, or your behavior. For many mentors, being empathetic early on in their mentoring relationship requires them to let go of some initial expectations about what mentoring was going to be like and preconceived ideas about what youth might want or need in order to adapt to being in an actual relationship with their mentee. If your mentee's life experiences are quite different from your own, do things to help you better understand their world. Be open to learning and deepening your understanding of your mentee and of yourself. You will not only become a more effective mentor, but you will also be contributing to building a more humane and connected world. See the full chapter at mentoring.org/bettermentor for more tips on how you can be a better mentor. Becoming a better.
All right, as I stated, there are tons of videos. I'm going to show you a couple more, but those videos are definitely available for download. But here comes the fun part for us to start getting into breakout rooms and having some initial conversations. First, though, I want you to take a minute and go back to 12-year-old you. One of the things that I'll always try to get people to understand is 46-year-old Marcus is standing here with 36-year-old Marcus, 26-year-old Marcus, 16-year-old Marcus, and so on and so forth. One person that I always lift up is my dad, who can easily bring out 6-year-old or 12-year-old Marcus in a moment. And it makes me think about where I was during that time. I want you all to take a moment and think about your 12-year-old self. Who were you during that time? And we're going to go into breakout rooms, give you about 5 minutes. And I want you to think about just some fun stuff. What were the movies you liked during that time? I may have been a little bit weird during that time at 12 years old because I was a huge fan of musicals, still am. West Side Story is easily my favorite musical of all time. I've actually played Bernardo and did the choreography for that play twice. So I love that musical, should I say. And then what kind of clothes were you wearing? For me, I was in a singing group, so anything that looked like Boys to Men or felt like Boys to Men, that's what I was wearing. Airbrushed overalls, it didn't matter. That's what we were doing. But I also want you to think about, how would 12-year-old you accept having an adult mentor come into your space right now? What would that feel like for you? How would you respond? What are some of the things that maybe you hoped an adult would have done during that time that would have made the relationship a little bit easier? So again, I want you to think about 12-year-old you and what 12-year-old you would have done during this time. And I'm going to put you in the breakout rooms, take about 5 minutes and just share, have some conversation, talk about what you wore, talk about the movies you liked. But then how would 12-year-old you accept right now an adult mentor coming into your life? As they start to close out. I can see the numbers up there. Welcome back. Welcome back. John, my brother, it's good to see you.
How you doing, Marcus?
Man, I'm amazing. I'm amazing. Trying to be like you. All right, let's see how many. Oh, we got 30 folks back. So let's jump into some conversation. You know what? I'm gonna actually stop this real quick before I jump back into that because I want to be able to see folks and learn about some of your 12-year-old selves. So who wants to tell us a little bit about what they learned, either, you know, sharing about themselves, what they shared about their 12-year-old person, or did something else come in? You don't have to share their name, but did you learn something about somebody that, you know, excited you, that, you know, maybe Jim's been playing the guitar since 12. We don't know, but would love to hear somebody jump out, talk to us, tell us about your 12-year-old self.
I was just gonna speak a little bit on, I think, the commonalities that I heard. There were a few of us that felt like we were around a lot of adults. Like growing up, we weren't like maybe as connected with our peers, and so that was like interesting. And then sometimes feeling like our parents were interested in the same things that we were, and so finding somebody that could kind of nurture that, or you know, also be interested in that, was like pivotal and like key. And when we found, you know, that person or that group, it really kind of like sparked us on our path. So that was really cool.
Love that, love that. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. It's amazing how many times you can find your person, right? Like there could be your person in like a deep, intimate relationship, but then there's your person that's like your best friend, or your person that's your mentor. Like it's amazing when you find those folks that can help, you know, keep that spark and then light it, you know, to a really great place. So that's amazing. Let's get one more person, one or two more people who want to share about their 12-year-old self. I see one of the twins on here now too. I'm about to call them out in a second, but anybody else want to share about their 12-year-old self, or what are some things you learned in the group?
I think that another commonality was kind of like trying to find your own identity at 12, because at 12 you're like coming out of elementary school and going into middle school. So it's like that weird, awkward time where you're trying to find yourself really as like a kid going into.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have twin 16-year-old boys who are still trying to find themselves. And what's great about this is sometimes I have to turn on my mentor hat with my own biological kids. Like, oh, okay, let me understand. Like, they don't know who they are. They're trying to figure this out. I'm supposed to be guiding them, but I'm also dad, and I need you to pick up this kitchen. That's a whole totally different piece, but just definitely hitting on, like, our young people they're lost, you know, but some of them are in a really great place and have already found themselves, but there's still a constant, you know, recreating or creating who they're going to become. Anybody else before I move on that just is dying to jump out and share?
Mr. King,
Hey, Mr.
Marcus,
King.
Mr. King, I'll put something out there. You know, with me, I'm probably the elder of the bunch, and my 12-year-olds, you know, it was the older people, the parents was as much work as they put in the village, they also put as much work in with the kids. And here in 2022, that's one of the most commonality that we're definitely trying to reach out to, the PIEs, the PIEs, parents involvement equal more success. And that's one of the things that we're pushing forward to now, is to definitely involve the parents more so as that mentor, because our parents too is looking for a mentor. So we looking on the parents aspect of the whole thing also. And as a parent, and you're speaking from a parent with your twins, so I can definitely understand and relate to where you're coming from, and definitely the PIEs, the parents involvement equals success. So my 12-year-old part was definitely the adults in the village.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Mr. King. I think, you know, I state this often, that as youth developers, who we are in this space, we are consistently thinking about how do we program, how do we support young people. What we don't recognize is how important it is for us to do that for the adults in this space, because I think oftentimes we believe they're adults, they have all the answers, they don't need anything. And I can tell you as a principal, I recognized a long time ago that my young people in the high school weren't the issue. It was my teachers, because I had triggered adults who were going in there with young folks, and we know young folks can push you a little bit. And once those teachers were triggered, sometimes we would get reactions that we had to work on it and really be able to attempt to heal. So I think, Mr. King, you are spot on with that. Appreciate you all sharing. We're going to go back into some breakout rooms in a little bit, but let's just spend a little bit more time talking about youth development and some of the things that we tend to stress, these 4 points around how do we really build positive youth development in our approaches, right? So thinking about how are we having a strength-based approach as opposed to a deficit-based approach to youth development. So really going in and lifting up and highlighting the things that all of our young people are doing great. We know all of the narratives around young people of color. We know all the narratives around our girls. We know all the narratives around our young men that are negative. How do we lift up and change what those narratives look like and how we approach this work? That is a body of work that we're getting ready to do with the Hidden Genius Project out of Oakland. We have 10 young people that we're going to be doing a racial equity plan around mentoring boys of color in schools. And then in 2023 with California Life Sciences, we'll be doing the same body of work with 10 young ladies. And we're really excited about that. How do we capitalize on pre-existing assets and resources is kind of what Mr. King was just talking about. How do we work with our parents? How do we work with other organizations? Right? How do we use the things that we have already out there to be able to support this work? Listen, I stress this to our government folks that we are having conversations with all the way down. There are 6 million babies in California. Not one organization efficiently is going to be able to do this work and make sure all of our 6 million babies have what they need. So working together, being strategic, please, as opposed to being the big dog in this space, is what's going to help us move the needle for young people around how do we use the assets and resources that lie within this group. I was just hearing about how close-knit and how connected you all are as a group in this pop-up space. I think it's phenomenal and definitely something that needs to be highlighted. How do we help youth develop a positive individual identity? This goes to the earlier comment around how do we help them figure out who they are and rejecting those negative messages, and then avoid recreating the structure of dominance and white supremacy that are in the mentoring relationship. If we go deep into this work, we know that mentoring was built by white folks in a supremacy mindset that I am going to come in as the leader, the person that knows all of the information. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. You need to do it. And we know that that is not the way that mentoring relationships need to be formed or how they produce positive outcomes. So how do we avoid recreating those structures is going to be important. I'm not going to read through all of this because I know you all know why mentoring works, but just in terms of long-term outcomes for young people, we want to make sure that they feel safe, healthy, and engaged, supported, challenged, and fulfilled. That last word is the one that I try to really stress with folks. The importance of feeling fulfilled. If there's anybody that saw
You put out there.
Oh, there we go. So thinking about fulfillment and what I was going to say in that piece, we think about Robin Williams. If you all know who Robin Williams is, he was an actor, comedian, did phenomenal work. Always had a goal of having his own TV show, wanting to be able to win an Oscar, not for something he did in a comedic space, but something he did that was a little bit more serious, which he did with Good Will Hunting. Becoming one of the most famous people in the world is something that he always aspired to be. But what we know in his life, he still wasn't fulfilled. He still was someone who took his own life because he was feeling a sense of depression, was feeling a sense of not being fulfilled. So we want to make sure that we are touching young people in a space of fulfillment so that they are moving into a place where they are thriving. So here's something that we want to highlight, and we always push into the space with folks. And I would love for somebody to jump off their microphone, off of their mute, excuse me, after I read through this, just to tell me, who do you think I'm talking about when I say folks? But we tell folks all the time, we tell people all the time to check your process as a program. Make sure that you are listening to the folks who will benefit from this work. Make sure you are building with the folks who will benefit from this work. Make sure that you are creating spaces with the folks who will benefit from this work. Anybody that would love to be able to jump off mute and just share. Who do you think I'm talking about when I say folks? Who are those folks?
The young people.
I would say the kids, yeah.
Boom. Absolutely. I just got a call a couple days ago. There's a new California, the governor just pushed in a youth and children's healthy behavioral health initiative. I always mess that up. Jim, I'm sure you probably know what it is. Correct me if I'm wrong with that initiative. But they reached out and they said, Marcus, we're getting ready to engage young people. We're going to have some listening sessions, and we would love to just hear from you if you think we're going in the right direction. So we have a meeting coming up next week. And the first thing I'm going to say to them is, before you built out this listening session, did you talk to young people? Did you even have a conversation with young people first? Like, it's great that you want to come to me or Dr. Alt or Greg King or Chris Clark or Jim Kitty. It's great that you want to come to us as adults because we know how to work with young people. That's phenomenal. But you need to make sure you're talking to young people before you move in this process. And I get it. Sometimes it's tough. We don't have those connections, but we want to make sure that folks are checking their process as they're doing this work so that they are listening, building, and creating space with young folks. So I'm going to take a quick break because I want to learn to tell myself to be quiet and open it up to see if there are any questions, any thoughts, or any moments of clarity that you want to share. Definitely jump out. Otherwise, I will jump right back into the presentation.
I think with the checking the process is very important because a lot of the times as adults, if we just put out what we think that the youth needs, a youth could come out and say that they don't really need that, they need something else. So we want to apply the stuff that, or create the things that will benefit them and they will actually use, instead of assuming that this is what they need and give them what they actually need.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. Love that. Thank you for sharing. Is it Adriana? I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
Yes.
Awesome. I get a gold star. I'm proud of myself. Go ahead, Mr. King.
So Dr. Mark, Mr. King, so one of the things that I always try to push amongst people who work with our young people, I'm gonna say folks, is a lot of people use the word mentor, but they forgot about the tutor. So the tools that the mentor use and the tools that the tutor use, can you just take a minute to talk about the difference in the mentor and the academic tutor?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I want to lift up, thank you, Mr. King, for bringing that up. Let me say out loud, I don't have my doctorate. Mr. King just likes to call me Dr. Marcus, but I don't want y'all to think I actually have my doctorate. Maybe my street doctorate, we'll just go with that, but I don't have an academic one. But I love that Mr. King is bringing this up. So let me start here. We actually started an initiative called Ready, Set. And I will put into the chat our actual website. It is in partnership with the Creative Arts Agency Foundation. We actually just pushed out Get Ready Read, Ready Set Read, excuse me, with Will Smith, with his new book. But a part of that is working with AmeriCorps as well as Volunteer Match to really stress the importance of tutoring, volunteering, and mentoring. So I will put that link in the chat so you all can go to that. We would love for you all to join our coalition. We have monthly meetings, really just to be able to share just some high level resources that are coming out of different areas and partners that we have. But to the point of, using mentor versus tutor versus volunteer and academic space, right? So if you're stepping into the academic space and that is your intention, right? It's great for you to go in there with the intentionality that I'm gonna help this young person become better at math, right? That is great in the academic space and what it is for. When we look at mentoring and we think about the idea of what it means to mentor, we really want to start with that whole child development approach, which really gets us into the space of thinking about who is this young person as a person outside of the academic work that they are attempting to do. We want them to be successful in school, but we also probably more importantly want them to be successful in life and how they can move forward. But I will say that there is definitely connections from a tutor to a volunteer to a mentor, which is one of the reasons why we did this coalition together, so that we can really get people to understand that at some point, we're all going to have to be connected because there's going to be a wraparound service that needs to happen, right? So if Chris is working in the mentor space, right, maybe Gabby is the academic tutor. Chris is saying, hey, I know what's happening at home and you want your math right now. He ain't going to do math for you, Gabby. Like, that's just not where we are. Let's focus on him life-wise. Once we get him to a different place life-wise, then Gabby, I'll do what I can on my end now to help you get him to get this math completed. So it becomes a shared partnership because each of us know these young people in a different way, right? John's going to have a different relationship with the young people in the community because he's approaching them in a different way, as opposed to someone who may see them in a school setting all the time. And I'm just using names as examples. I don't want anybody to feel like I'm calling you out, but I love that you're here. And Chris, I appreciate the shaking of the head to give me the okay, because I've called you out twice. So thank you.
No worries, sir.
Awesome. So I'm going to keep going through this. As I stated, we have a couple other breakout rooms that I want to try to jump into, but we have about 10, 15 minutes because I want you to be able to talk about your contracts. So let's think about mentoring in terms of coping and healing. We have this broken down in phases. Phase one, when you think about creating space for young people, think about how do you create space for race? How do you create space that allows for naming to happen in a place where young people feel safe, right? Whether it be through pronouns, which I've had tons of discussions with adults, like I'm lost, I can't do it. Is it he? Is it her? Is it they? Is it them? Is it us? Is it we? I don't know what to do. What I want you to understand is that asking questions, getting to a place where you can meet with folks who can help you understand what the process of naming means for young people is going to be important. I know Dr. Alt is doing amazing work with her RAGE process or RAGE organization, excuse me. Definitely somebody to reach out to be able to ask those questions. As we get into phase two, though, we want you to start thinking about storytelling. How do we rechannel some of the rage or frustration that we may see in young people to be able to then go out and build the community that they want to see, to build the schools that they want to see, to build the house, right? The family setting that they want to see, because they can move the needle. And then lastly, it's important for us. And I've seen this happen with just adults 2 days ago. We oftentimes ask the question, how many times a day do you ask somebody, how are you doing? Going throughout the day, do you really mean that though? So in a meeting that I was there to facilitate something different, I just happened to be in the background. They were coming back, of course, from break. And of course, COVID is still rampant. The adult asked the question, before we go any further, we just want to know, how are you feeling? And one of the staff members interjected with, I'm tired. I don't feel like we have enough support. I don't feel like X, Y, and Z. And what happened was they were told that they were being negative, as opposed to validating their feelings, as opposed to recognizing and affirming where they were. We can do this with adults. We can do this with young people. We sometimes have to take a step back and ask ourselves, how do we affirm what young people are saying to us? How do we acknowledge the feelings that are coming up for them? And then how do we validate? How do we help them understand that we hear them, that we are empathetic to what they are going through, so on and so on. And the same thing happens with our adults. One of my new staff members, having a conversation with him, validating where he was something that he had never felt before. So we had to talk through that. Like, what does it mean to feel that validation, and how does it help you move forward? When we're creating spaces for healing, here's 3 things that we encourage you all to think about. How do you create dialogue, right? Is this a circle, creating space for open conversation and processing? Is it through this Zoom, right? On Saturday, I have 10 young people that we're going to be doing a healing circle through Zoom, right? To be able to just create a space for open conversation. When I was a school teacher, every Wednesday, we did no curriculum. We spent the day learning about each other, talking about what the kids want to talk about, and just being in space with each other. When I was a high school principal, the first 2 weeks of school, my teachers were not allowed to open up curriculum books We're not doing math. We're not doing language arts. We're not doing science. We're going to work with each other. We're going to build relationships. We're going to do team building activities. And those first 2 weeks were about making sure our culture was going to be what we wanted it to be. So think about how you create those spaces. Then what do you do with the arts? Centering around writing, which we've talked about earlier. Music making, asking Jim to come put together some great songs and let the young people record something in the studio. Dancing as form of expressions, murals, which I know is huge in Sacramento. How do we do those things that create opportunities for healing through the arts? And then how important and intentional it is for us to make sure we have culturally responsive healers in the space. So if you're bringing young people together, if you feel like you may not be prepared for that answer that might come, that's going to throw you off, how do you have people there that are ready for that? I'm a Freedom Writer teacher. If you all have seen the movie Freedom Writers or read the book Freedom Writer's Diary, people often ask me, how did Erin do that without having to turn in some of those folks to CPS? And I will tell you that it was tough, and I will tell you that it did not never happen. She did have to turn in some of those issues to CPS, but she had already created a relationship and a space that felt safe and was ready for healing that allowed her to be able to move with those young people in that way. And what's phenomenal about that is 30 years later, they still work for her through the Freedom Writers Foundation, which is absolutely phenomenal. All right, so I have another video that I want to show you all. We're going to watch this, and then we're going to go into another breakout room, and then I'm going to be able to close this out by about 1:45. So hopefully, Jim, I'm giving you all enough time to be able to speak through contracts. So Chris, you are the person that I see right now on screen. Can you be my accountability partner and just give me a thumbs up when you hear this so I know we're good to go?
Becoming a better mentor. Strategies to be there for young people. Attunement in mentoring relationships. When you hear the word attunement, the standard definition that might come to mind is of things being harmonious and people connecting to their surroundings and to other people. Much like the common definition, there's also attunement in mentoring relationships. Attunement is a process of paying attention to a young person in the moment and noticing their cues in order to meet them where they are. This often involves reading body language and verbal signs to understand how to move forward in the interaction. To begin, attunement involves calming or centering yourself and noticing your own cues. Ask yourself, am I feeling anxious, worried about my mentee? Have I had a long day already? Am I dragging as I greet my mentee? Or am I excited and eager, building off our last great conversation? As you attune to yourself, you will be better able to attune to your mentee's verbal and nonverbal cues. Young people often communicate with their body language as much as with their voices. So observing cues like noticing eye contact, body posture, pace of speech, and other behaviors can help you respond in a way that makes sense for the interaction. As you read the cues of your mentee, you can collaborate and explore how to best address their needs. You can do that through discussion using a series of questions. Ask them if they are getting to what they wanted to talk about today, or if they have anything else on their minds. These questions allow you to share power with your mentee and give them another opportunity to identify or remind you what is most important to them. At the end of your interaction, ask questions like, what stands out from our time together? Questions like these help you to reflect upon and address any points that have arisen in the course of your time together. Finally, and most important, don't give up as you work to develop attunement skills. It's a slow but steady process. And when you misstep, as we all do, don't hesitate to acknowledge your oversight and repair what you missed. Developing these skills is a worthwhile investment that can strengthen not only your relationship with your mentee, but also other important relationships across your life. See the full chapter at mentoring.org/bettermentor for more tips on how you can be a better mentor.
All right, so I'll use this quick example for myself. Yesterday, some things happened with my twins and my wife that needed to be addressed, but what I knew was emotions were too high. I could see it in my son. He was not ready to have this conversation. We haven't had the conversation yet. We will, but I had to pay attention to where he was, had to pay attention to where my wife was, and also paying attention to where I was so that we can make sure we have a productive conversation that moves us to the direction that we need to move, which is forward and in a positive space. So that is what we're really trying to get folks to think about when we're centering this work. How do we move in a way that allows us to provide processes for healing and for joy? But I'm going to put you in the breakout rooms right now, because I think oftentimes we miss the ways that we have policed, and not we necessarily as the group that is here, but just as adults, just as culture, just as society. What are ways that we have policed young people's processes for healing and joy? But I also want to encourage you to think about, how do we combat that? How do you as a program or as an adult do some things differently that allow us to be able to break that cycle of policing spaces of healing and joy for young people? So I'm going to put you in the breakout rooms again. You're going to have about 5 minutes, just like we had before, and then we will come back and I'll get ready to, I would love to hear from some of you all, and then we'll get ready to close things out. I may not get to every slide today, so please make sure that you get a time to go through the rest of the slides, but definitely check out the guidebook that we've shared with you, and I'll speak a little bit more about that after we come back. Talk to you all in just a few moments. Beautiful. So a couple of things that I wanted to state. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment, just to reiterate. Earlier, when we were having a conversation, and I spoke about the culture of white supremacy that has developed a lot of mentoring programs. What we want folks to think about is, how do we move differently, right? How do we move in a way that takes away from the culture that many of us have lived through or are experiencing, so that our mentoring programs look different. I actually put something in the chat as well, right? So how do we acknowledge, confront, and interrupt racism? How do we facilitate youth their critical consciousness? But then how do we support positive identity development, and then mentors and mentees as active agents and partners, right? So especially when we think about this space of BIPOC youth coming into our work, it's just really important for us to be intentional about making sure that we are getting away from cultures that have been built that may be violent or disrupting, or not disrupting, but causing issue for students of color coming into those spaces. So I hope that maybe I clean that up just a little bit so that you all better understand what I meant by that, so that you all can see, just as we're moving through this, we want to make sure that our young folks are coming into safe spaces that are feeling like a space where they can come and be their authentic selves. And then being in room 3, I heard some phenomenal conversation just around policing of young people and what that looks like, and how we just are really open to allowing them to come into the space and build the way that they need to. So I think it's really important for us to continue to think through that. I know in these times we have a lot that is going on, but I think it's important for us to make sure we're lifting up all of the different pieces that come into space for young folks as we go through this work. I am going to shuffle through just as we get to the end of this, so that we can make sure that we finalize this piece, and again, get to your contracts, because I know this is done at 2. The last piece that I want to stress, thinking about having a mentoring mindset. 4 components of that is, how are you intentional in this work, right? How do you make sure young people know that you see them? How are you supportive so that they know that you are there in every way, committed fully to the relationship? We, Mentor California, do tons of programming with folks, especially on the corporate level or in workforce development around workplace mentoring. And oftentimes adults get into those spaces like very overjoyed. All young people, we're here, we're ready. Like, let us know, here's my email, contact me. And I can't tell you how many times young people have done that and then the adult doesn't reach back out. So we always want to make sure we're stressing that folks are committed fully to the relationship, knowing that you're in this together, being communal, and then just developmental. I'm here to help in whatever way I can help you thrive and move forward. Lastly, as we're moving through this with relationship characters, I'm not going to play this video. I just want to lift up if there's any questions that you all may have. I will stop sharing my screen now before I hand it back over to Richard and Jim to be able to get into those other conversations. Hopefully you all got something from today. I appreciate you all allowing me to come and be in the space with you. If you have any questions, my email is marcus@mentorcaliforniayouth.org. The last piece I will say is that if you are not a part of our Mentoring Connector, we encourage you to become a part of our Mentoring Connector. With that, underneath that piece, OJJDP, we have a grant with them that allows us to give you up to 50 hours of professional development at no cost to you. So if you are looking for more support, more resources, more training, you can do that with us underneath our Mentoring Connector at no cost to you. So please, please, please use us as much as you possibly can. That is why we are here, just to be a support and be able to move us in the right direction. Again, if there's any questions, please feel free to ask now. Otherwise, Richard, Jim, back to you.